Hi, everyone. This is Chaplain Jeremy Slido, and I'm stationed at Naval Support Activity South Potomac. And this is Stepping Off the Brow, a show for sailors and military-connected civilians where we look at life's issues on both sides of the ship's brow. So whether you are stepping off the brow to come to work, stepping off the brow to come home, or you're waiting for someone to step off the brow to come home to you, this show is for you. More importantly, during this time of COVID-19 and all the things about being in the Navy life, we want to introduce you to people and their stories that can give you strength for today and a bright hope for tomorrow.
So today we are chatting with Commander Chandra Newman, who's the CEO of Helicopter Sea Combat Squadron 5, is going to kind of chat with us today. So HSE 5 is part of Carrier Air Wing 7, so go Night Nippers. So welcome, ma'am.
Thank you.
So we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been in the military, and just kind of a little bit of your general background and kind of how maybe the trajectory of your career, educational background, and kind of how you ended up as CEO, like what that sort of looks like with your story?
Sure. I actually joined the Navy when I was 19 in a pre-9/11 Navy with a bachelor completion program, an enlisted commissioning program, with a contract to OCS and a flight contract. I had a dream ever since I was about in 6th grade to fly, but nobody in my family was an aviator of any sort, and I can't even begin to tell you where it came from, but it was a dream. I wrote a book report on it when I was in 6th grade. Wound up enlisting in early 2001, and then finished my degree, which good Navy paycheck helped pay for my education, and then went to OCS under that flight contract, flight school for a couple years down in the Pensacola, Florida area, and then advanced helicopter training, a fleet replacement squadron in San Diego, and then stationed in Norfolk for about 8 years. Then went to Guam for a department head tour with HSC 25, then to the War College for a year, Germany for 2 years, and then right back to Norfolk. And now we're here with Carrier Air Wing 7. So born and raised Floridian, Alabama's where I call home now. Troy State grad, now known as Troy University. Go Trojans. So it's been a good time. 19 and a half years.
So how did you decide that you wanted to be a pilot, and specifically for helos?
So, like I said, I had a dream in 6th grade. I was a country girl, so we had to do public speaking events every year in order to show our cows, hogs, chickens, rabbits, whatever at the county fair. We had to do this thing called county events. And so leading up to that time, I'd always done like a cooking demonstration or something like that. And in 6th grade, I used these smarts of a 2-for-1. Don't tell my teachers. Back in 6th grade, I had a school book report, and then I also had to do county events. So I wrote a book report on the history of naval aviation, and then used it for my county events, and wound up going to regionals and selected for state in the speaking competition regarding the history of naval aviation. And ever since then, I was bitten with the bug. I wanted to fly, and I had no idea that it was going to be in the Navy in the years later. No idea how that was very fortuitous, honestly. And then went to flight school. You wanted to know how I became a helicopter pilot? Well, I was a puker in flight school. I got airsick. I'd flown, I think, 1, maybe 2 commercial flights ever before going to flight school.
Mm-hmm.
And flying in VT6 in the mighty T-34 Turbo Mentor in June in Florida, I got airsick every flight for 13 flights, unless they put me in the spin and puke, which is supposed to desensitize you from aeronautical adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would, if they would do a combination of that additional training along with medication to help with the motion sickness. And I was a breath away from actually being physically disqualified from aviation because I wasn't aeronautically adapting. I kept puking. And I actually had the flight surgeon had gone to the front office to recommend NPQ, the student control officer that you had to visit every single time you puked, and my on-wing who instructed me, because I hadn't failed any events. I would literally discharge whatever was in my stomach content at the time, bag it up, put it in my pocket, and continue my flight. But the fact that I was puking every time, I had to go through the whole process. Well, my on-wing and the student control officer went to bat for me, basically, and they saw something, obviously, that tended to work out. I was able to stay in the flight program and promised that I would never go jets.
So now, were you, at that time, trying to go, as we'd say, fixed wing?
Oh, I think every aviator's initial dream is to live out their fantasy of growing up, well, for my generation, growing up with Top Gun. Yeah, absolutely. Want to be a fighter pilot. And so it might be a little bit lost on the current generation, given that a lot of them haven't even seen Top Gun. We're waiting for Top Gun 2 to reinvigorate that, I think. But
so
yeah,
could you refresh?
That was an original desire until I started peaking, and then that quickly was not a desire anymore.
Could you refresh for us maybe like one of those conversations you had with someone as you're trying to stay in the program, trying to stay fixed wing and on that trajectory, and how you felt in those conversations?
Well, so for every Navy, Marine, and Coast Guard pilot, you start in fixed wing training to begin with, no matter what. So it wasn't a question of trying to be fixed wing or not at that point. That's the training pipeline for primary flight school. So not understanding that I was going to get airsick for the entire contact phase, I can tell you very clearly it's exhausting when you're feeling ill on your flights and you still have to perform to the level of grade and criteria of your cards. And then when you get to the flight knowing that you got airsick and still finished your flight, but still had to go talk to StuCon and go through medical and do all those processes, is you can't be an airsick aviator and expect it to do your missions, right? That doesn't work. But it was pretty quickly where it was exhausting. And as much as I enjoyed flying fixed wing, I enjoyed the aerobatics and going upside down, and I enjoyed those things. My vestibular system did not. So it didn't take much convincing to say, yeah, I don't think jets are for me.
Can you tell us, like, so you were talking about how going through flight school, there's these, you kind of experience like, sickness and not knowing if you're going to make it through the pipeline. Like, what was it that kind of got you through that?
Well, for me, I think it was always the dream. And so I had a goal in mind, and the vision of seeing that goal, the distance. I didn't know, I'll be honest, I didn't know the flight surgeon conversations in the background. I had no idea. I found that out a couple years later as I had wound up being friends later in life with that student control officer, and then kind of got more of the story. But for me personally, I tried everything. I did everything that I could. Everybody has the wives' tales of remedies, from ginger, eat, don't eat, bland food, no food, crackers, ginger ale. You mentioned the remedies, the herbals, the whatever you can, let alone on top of the Navy or military program of trying to aeronautically adapt somebody, being the lovingly called spin and puke chair that I had to do a couple of rides in. And part of it was also being on the medications for air sickness. But you can only do that for so long because you just can't rely on being on meds to do your job, right? So, at least not for aviation. So the end goal was, for me, the self-motivation and doing everything on my end that I knew that I could do and hopefully control as much as possible. And the rest of it was out of my control. I am a faith-based person, so I was going to church and doing all those things and trying to just stay positive and keep my end goal in mind and do the best I could. The things that I could control was how hard I studied, how I knew my procedures, And if I got sick, that I knew that I could finish my flight and still execute because I knew my procedures, even if the consequences of getting sick in flight was still, I had to go through the whole administrative and medical process every single flight. Made for longer days, but I knew what I wanted and try to keep as a positive attitude as I can and try to control the things that I can control. And for things that were out of my control, I left it up to the hands.
So now we're getting into a segment where we're going to have some rapid fire questions. We like to call this ramming speed. As I always say,
to call it ramming speed.
I call it ramming speed because this reminds me of Ben-Hur and the scene when they're in the boat and the guy with the leather is beating the drum and they say, ramming speed! And I just envisioned myself as one of those characters. Could you imagine me and not the guy with the oar, and not the guy calling the command. It's the guy wearing the leather beating the drum.
Jeremy, how many folks are going to understand the Ben-Hur analogy?
This is part of my mission, is to raise awareness of cinematic excellence that is Ben-Hur. First question. These rapid fire. Ready? Here we go. Don't even think about it. Just answer. Ready? Okay. What's the weirdest thing you've ever eaten?
Oh. Balut in the Philippines.
What is that?
What is
it's like a partially fermented, partially grown chicken.
Sorry to hear that.
Oh, yeah. Do you have any hidden talents?
I used to be able to play the flute and the French horn really well. Can't say that I do much anymore.
Nice. What's your favorite thing to do when you're alone?
I'm a movie buff. I like watching movies.
Like
I read, obviously, but guilty pleasure part, movie buff.
Yes.
Favorite movie?
Oh, there's so many. If you'd have to narrow it down to genre, for crying out loud. That's not even close. I really enjoy for rom-coms Sabrina, whether it's the classic Audrey Hepburn or the modern Harrison Ford, Julia Ormond version. Love Me, Belle Pullman, whether it's comedy or action.
Very niche.
Right?
Independence Day, right?
What's that?
Independence Day.
The first one, for the record.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Nobody wants to watch the second. Let's see, action thrillers. I like the Bourne series. I like the Taken series. I like the sci-fi fantasies. I'm a closeted Trekkie, maybe. But I also like Star Wars. I think my brother went more Star Wars. I went more Star Trek. I probably nerd on that way too much for most people's taste.
Okay, so then favorite series was Star Trek. If you're a really Trekkie fan, you'll know what your favorite series is and why.
Next Generation, Patrick Stewart, every day, yesterday, today, tomorrow.
Engage, number one.
So.
Make it so.
All right, Christina, you're up. Go.
Oh, what's your favorite line from a movie?
Ooh. Man, the Rolodex is going right now. So this is kind of a weird, unfair question because, as you know, on deployment, every dumb movie has a dumb movie quote, and that's usually where everybody, you anchor down on a movie quote that is usually in the dude comedy realm. So you like old school, You're My Boy Blue is a go-to. You don't know what I'm...
You've never seen...
Yeah. Sorry, Jeremy. Yeah, that's... You just have to watch Old School.
Yeah, Old School. And
then you get an interview moment with the Will Ferrell character as he's doing the debate, and he just completely blacks out, and he wakes up and he's like, oh, what happened? There's... you got me there. I would have to say that just more deployment movie quotes are rolling through my brain right now than actual beloved movie quotes, but You're My Boy Blue is kind of a go-to deployment classic from Old School.
How would you spend a rainy day?
Probably watching a movie or reading a book. But again, depends if I'm wanting to be just a couch potato or if I want to be more mentally stimulated with a book that I have on my nightstand.
Would you rather be part of the Incredibles family or the Weasley family?
Ooh, Incredibles or Weasleys, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just, for the first time, because of you, Chaplain Montel, for the first time, I actually watched the entire Harry Potter series a couple months ago. So that I never read the book series. I still haven't. I need to. But I finally watched all 8 movies or something crazy like that.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of dig the Weasleys, not going to lie.
Okay.
Nice. All right, last one. Would you rather live in a house made of cheese or a house made of cookie dough?
Cheese, all day.
Boom.
As long as it's not the really smelly stuff.
No, good cheese.
I mean, maybe it could be like different bricks of cheese.
Some people think the smelly stuff is good cheese.
Different
I like
bricks.
the smell of the cookie dough, but if I'm going to have a snack on my house, it would definitely be the cheese.
Agreed. All right, so now our theme music is the song Josie O by Jamie Stone. Random Speed music is the song Music to Clean Your House To by Jennifer Levin. The views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts or guests and not the United States Navy. You can subscribe to Stepping Off the Brow wherever you find your favorite podcast. And of course, please feel free to share this with your shipmates, friends, or family. See you next week.